Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. So this is episode 3 of Runner Stories, and if you haven't come across this series before, it's basically a series where I'm profiling a number of different runners from the running community, hearing their stories, their goals, their aspirations. There's been 2 episodes already, so if you haven't seen those and want to go and watch those, I've now put a Runner Stories playlist on the main page of the channel. But for the moment, this is episode 3, Martin's story. So here we go.
So my name's Martin. I'm clinging on to 55 years old at the moment. 4.5 years ago, I was hit by a car on my way to work, and then I had to undergo an emergency operation to save my life. And that resulted in me having to have my leg amputated above the knee. But I then took up wheelchair tennis, and one of the chaps at wheelchair tennis, he was talking about doing a marathon in his wheelchair, and I just thought, oh, maybe that's something I could do. So that's sort of why I started thinking, oh, I could maybe do the running. Well, it's mainly for fitness. That's primarily why I do the running, to help build my strength and conditioning, in order to make sure that I'm strong and fit enough to use. I wear a prosthetic leg most of the time, so I'm not permanently in a wheelchair. So I need to have sort of good strength and conditioning in order to be able to operate that, and also obviously when preparing for when I'm older and being able to use a wheelchair as well. So it's mainly for that fitness and strength and conditioning. So I didn't even know how far I'd be able to push. And I thought, well, I was thinking about maybe just going around a track and working out how far that would be. And then I was at Brighton Table Tennis Club, and the founder, Tim Holtum, he sort of mentioned something about the park run, and so I checked it out online, and then I went down midweek and did a sort of a trial or a pre-trial on my own to see if I would be able to do it. And so then I realized actually it's something I could do, so I registered, and then the following week I did my first one, and I think I've done 34 now, so it's enjoyable. Not always at the time. I think sometimes when I'm doing it, I'm thinking, why am I doing this? But afterwards, I always feel I'm really pleased that I did this. Yeah, so initially, when I started doing the park run, I was using my tennis wheelchair. Now the tennis wheelchair has 2 very small casters at the front and 1 at the back, and therefore the terrain at Hove Prom is really quite difficult for it. My new wheelchair, or day chair as most wheelchair users will call it, doesn't have that. It has 2 larger casters on the front and doesn't have anything on the back, so therefore it's a little bit smoother over the terrain. However, in order to make it a little even more smoother, I have what's called a free wheel, which is a largish wheel that you attach to the footplate of the wheelchair, that then raises the casters off the ground. So therefore, in effect, you're actually on a 3-wheeled wheelchair, and that then allows you to go over terrain more smoothly. It's I chose that out of the others because not all the others are wheelchair suitable, and so it's relatively flat, albeit it does have a camber, and there's a number of areas. The terrain is very rough, so that can mean that the pushing is quite a cardio workout. But when I first went there, everyone was so welcoming and inclusive. I think also Hove Prom, what they do now for those with disabilities, whether it's blind runners or wheelchairs, at the start they sort of cordon it off, so we have our own start, which takes away a bit of the anxiety for us, in the sense of, because we're often a bit concerned about running into people or hitting people's ankles with the wheelchair or whatever. So having that sort of separate start is really beneficial to us, and everyone's just so welcoming, all the volunteers. I can only go on my experience, which was probably fairly limited, and there's a lot more wheelchair users who are probably far more qualified to talk about this than me. But certainly things that we look out for is obviously glass is obviously quite a big no-no for us. I have had a puncture in the past, and so and even certain things, as things like dog poo or something like that, that can be left. We have to look out for things like that, because otherwise we can end up on our rims and hands. But also we're very conscious of people in front of us, and we don't want to catch their ankles. To be fair, in my limited experience, I find that most people are very accommodating. I think it can be difficult at times, because they don't always hear us coming. The thing is, when we've got momentum, we don't really want to stop. So it's just about being mindful that it's probably easier for them to move rather than us in a wheelchair, or then we have to stop and then start again. But it's I've found that most people are quite courteous. So when I did my first park run, I was the only wheelchair user at the time, but now there is sort of 3 or 4 of us. Now there's a couple of other guys from the tennis club, and another guy that has come down who I used to play wheelchair basketball with. So there's sort of 3 or 4 of us now, but it would be good to have some more down there. And it's just to say, it is incredibly inclusive, and everyone is welcome. Initially, I didn't even know if I'd be able to do a 5k, and so I know I can do a 5k. And at the moment, my new wheelchair, I'm sort of tinkering with it to make it a bit better, because I'm trying to work out how I could go on different terrains, different gradients. But really, my next goal would be to do a 10k, which I think I could do, again depending on the route itself, and then. I haven't ruled out the possibility of doing a marathon, and that's something that I am thinking maybe achievable.